Welcome to LaQuita's Toolbox, where we deliver relevant content in the form of tools that empower entrepreneurs to elevate personally and professionally. Good is only good until greater is envisioned. You know there's another level in you. Here we discuss the tools to get you there. Lean in as LaQuita and her guests present you with strategies and insight for unlocking your full potential to realize your boldest dream. Welcome back to another amazing episode of LaQuita's Toolbox. I am your host, LaQuita Mondley, and we are coming at you today with another amazing episode and a really great guest here. His name is Zach, and I cannot wait for you guys to meet him. So for those that are returning listeners, you know the drill. Get something to write with and something to write on, because we know pen and paper, they don't forget, but sometimes we do. And we want to write them down to make sure that we can make proper application of the tools that Zach will be sharing with us today. But before we jump into our conversation with Zach, let me take a moment to thank our sponsors at Covenant Press. Covenant Press is a faith-based Christian apparel and accessory shop where we as believers can shop online for clothing and accessories that allow us to wear the message of the love of Jesus Christ. Go out to www.covenant-press.com. Again, that's www.covenant-press.com. Shop until you drop, but do not click off of those pop-ups too quickly because they contain valuable codes. And when you place that code at checkout, you'll receive some amazing savings on your purchases with Covenant Press. Again, that's www.covenant-press.com. Listen, Zach, welcome to the Toolbox. I am so excited to have you, sir. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. A little bit sick, but overall fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. You know, every day that we can wake up on this side of the dirt, I like to say it's fantastic. And I really have to remind myself of that on a lot
Yep.
of days. Yeah. But on this thankful Thursday, welcome to the Toolbox, and take a moment, please, if you don't mind, to introduce yourself to the Toolbox audience.
Uh, well, my name is Zach Coleman, and I own an athletic-driven branding agency that helps gym leaders build their brand through community and digital experiences.
Now, that sounds exciting, Zach. How exactly do you do that? Because when I think about, and I say that, and me and my husband have a workout program that we purchased, and it's right on my Apple TV. But you're talking in like the physical location gyms, right?
I am.
So how does that work? Like, to explain that to me, because I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I think we'd have to take a little step back, right? I think
Okay.
that with everything going on with the digital marketing world, and if you just say online world and digital world, I feel like a lot of people uh, kind of get what I call marketing fatigue.
Mm,
Um, they think that, hey, I have to try everything. I have to go on social media. I have to do this. I mean, I own a marketing agency, and I'll tell you what, I've had marketing fatigue myself millions of times because you feel like you just have all this stuff at your capabilities to try things, do different things. And I think with the online space, if you're a personal trainer and or doing something online, you have a little bit of a different type of strategy. Your strategy isn't so much a physical location. Like
mhm.
for me, for instance, I'm in Arizona. So if I wanted to, you know, market a gym that was local to me, they would be in, their members and the people that would be willing to go to that gym to get that experience would be only driving 1 or 2 miles, right? Where if you're online, you're like, all right, well, they can find me easier,
Mhm.
but I have a million. What is it? How many people are in the world now? 20 billion people that I'm marketing to now, instead of just this 2 to 3 million there in my little local location. And so when you're doing an online thing, it's a little bit differently. It's a little bit different. You have to put a lot more money to your marketing. You have to put a lot more time and energy to be seen from the people online. Where when you're a gym, I think that, or you're a physical location, you think that you need to market to all those people, but in reality, you need to it's much easier to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Like, I really just need to focus on the 3 million people within a 2 to 3 mile radius of where I live, or where my gym is. And so I think that would probably be, and we work with athletes as well. We've worked with athletes. We've worked with a lot of online businesses as well. It's a different audience, or how I would put it, you have a much larger audience that you have to start focusing on.
So you said something there with the burnout that comes with marketing. And I thought that was just me because I have no idea what I'm doing. But to hear the experts say it, so partnering or knowing when to partner or having the right team members in that time as a brand, and we're talking no matter what brand it is, but for you specifically, um, gyms, how how necessary is that for them in this day and age to be able to keep their doors open? And when I mean like customer retention and not just customer acquisition.
I think that's part of the problem. I think that, a lot of people in this day and age, they just focus on acquisition.
Mm,
They just, I mean, I'm not going to put any of my so-called non-vertical competitors on the board here, but you do see a lot of them kind of saying, "Hey, just reach out to 1 million people and just cold call, or call 1 million people and see if you can
mhm,
get people in the door." And to be honest, when you're a personal brand, or you're under, let's say, 500,000 a year
mhm,
mark, you are going to have a lot of those trial periods. You are going to have a lot of marketing fatigue, finding out your services, enhancing things, building offers. I mean, I think that's common in the validation stage
mhm.
of trying to grow anything, let alone the owners around it evolving as people and, saying, oh, now I have different metrics of success that I'm looking for. I think those kind of go hand in hand, which is a different story. But, um, I think at the end of the day, yeah, I myself, I I know how to do the things. And so that's what made it very hard for me to like slow down and be like, I can do this, 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 and this. I can do them all very well. Um excuse me, but really trying to find one or two things marketing wise that you can do. And back to your point,
Mhm,
like, when you're under a certain amount, there is a lot of businesses out there, and I think it's very common for um, people that are in the corporate world, or people that may be in leadership roles, a gym or anything, that may not necessarily be the owner,
mhm,
um, don't understand that, hey, top line revenue, like, you're making $1 million, like, you don't need, or they don't necessarily have, thousands of employees. People are so used to seeing these big box gyms, or these 50 million to a billion dollar companies, and they're like, oh, they have millions of employees. Like, no, like, when you're small, you maybe have one or two,
mhm,
maybe three. Um, and I think that when you're smaller, you get into the grasp of your first real move as a personal brand, and as you're trying to sell yourself, is you kind of transition into, what I call going from a me to an us, which
mm,
is, I mean, a me to a we. Sorry, you go from a me to a we, which is, you your mindset starts to shift, and you go from a manager to a leader, because you hear everyone just say delegate, delegate. So that's what you do, right? You hire, other marketers, you hire video editors, you hire something if you're a personal brand, or you're hiring an agency. I mean, I have the same problems because I have to hire a team, um, to do things right, that get to a point where you realize that you're just getting fatigued because you're a manager. You went from doing the work to managing the work, which is really, you're still changing time for trading time for money. You just gave yourself a different title. And for you to really evolve into the we aspect and becoming more of a leader, it happens around that mark, right? You kind of have to start saying, oh, well, you realize that, hey, like, I'm making a good amount of money. I'm happy, or I'm feel like I've reached a milestone that I feel like I can reach personally, but it's not about me anymore. You start to get out of that spectrum of wanting it to all just to be about this invisible number of success, because you realize bottom line is way different than top line. And so you start to be like, oh, like, I actually want to help other people succeed. I want to help other people learn this stuff. I want to start not just delegating my services off, but bringing people onto the team that have similar values, have similar aspirations, enjoy what they're doing. And so as you start to become more of a leader, that's kind of the transition period that a lot of business owners, or a lot of even personal brands, have to take to become more of a we brand. And then to go to an us, it's really just aligning that team and yourself with the clients. If to go back to your original hypothesis of, oh, what's different from owning a physical location compared to going online? Well, there's really only two differences. One, a gym, it has an actual location. So you actually, like I said, you could target just the people within a 3-mile radius, and your marketing is much easier because you don't have to spray the wall to the whole world. But two, you have the ability to have group classes or sell certain things in bulk. And so as an online brand, if you're like an online personal trainer or an online situation, trying to start building more cohorts or building situations where you can make the same amount per individual, but being able to do it in a group setting so that you're not spending your time, training one person or training just a handful of people, being able to train a whole bunch of people. And that's really only the two differences that I see between having a gym and an online space. Is you have that, but really at the end of the day, it's expenses. Right? An online brand, I see a lot of people thinking that, oh, if I'm going to be a personal brand, that really means I don't have all the responsibility of hiring a team. I don't have the responsibility of owning a location and having the expense of paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month for this location. And
pay that in the tools you need to be successful online.
For an online, it's a little bit different, because you look at a gym, for instance, and a very healthy gym is about has about a, and this is in most industries that have a location, restaurants, etc. Gyms is about 10% profit margins. Restaurants is about 5%, but that's a different story. You have about a 10% profit margin. That means they have about 10% of their profits that have to go to marketing. Not their profits, of their overall top line goes to marketing. So usually that's where they only have 10% wiggle room there. So you have that where you're online. People that are online don't really think that way. They just think, oh, I'm bringing a lot more money into my pockets. But you have to put more to marketing. You just have to. There's more people you have to reach. And so you have to constantly put more stuff out there and building stuff online. And that's where a lot of that fatigue comes from, is hearing someone say, do social media or do this or do that. And that bled into the space of local retailers and local membership things, because they think the same thing. they think, oh, hey, I have to be on social media. I have to do social media advertisement. I have to, do social media posts of my workouts and stuff. Though those things can be effective, I've seen
No,
that. What now?
but there's no guarantee even in that.
Well, there's no guarantee in anything, really. I heard this phrase yesterday by, funny enough, one of my coaches that really aligned with me. And he mentioned something about you can build anyone can kind of build a strategy, right? Anyone can build a strategy, but it's the person behind the strategy that makes it effective.
It makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
Let me take a minute. I know you guys have been loving everything that Zach has been putting out there, because I've been loving everything that Zach has been putting out there. So take this moment, if you would, to go ahead and hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons on your favorite podcast listening platform. And let's make sure that we get this episode into the hands of those that that it will be a blessing to, because what he's talking about here, these strategies and these principles are not just for gym owners. These strategies and these principles that he's talked about so far, it's for business owners, period. And so you want to make sure we get this out and we get this shared to as many people as possible, and make sure that you're going to go in and check these show notes so that you can know how to get in contact with Zach, because I know you're going to have 1,000 questions for him, just like I do. Like I have 1,000 questions. I have 1,000 questions for him, because I'm thinking, whether it's the online space where, like one of the products that my husband and I use, and we got it during COVID, just to be able to spend some more time together, but yes, work out, is a program, and I like the program, and it's an online workout program. It's called Strength of Seductions. It's for couples, but I'm also looking at it as a business owner. They put a lot of money into that marketing and to that branding and to all of the things. And this is just online. I can't imagine. And it's the couple that created it, even building their personal brand. So when you're talking to gym owners that aren't a part of a big box franchise, um, how much of their success in this space depends on their ability to build a strong personal brand that helps draw people to that business? Or does it
Well,
not work like that?
I think it's funny because I think we just kind of said the definition of branding, and within that last statement we talked about before the break, which was it's the people behind the strategy that actually makes the difference. I think that if we wanted to go deep into this conversation, I I always tell people I'm a marketer that hates marketing. And it's because that marketing fatigue and the premise of everyone thinking that they have to push the tangibles. They have to say, I need a website, I need to put content out there, I need to do this. But none of that's as effective as the person behind the leadership roles, the business owners, and that in itself is branding. That in itself is branding. You go to any sort of, like, these people that you were talking about that you work out online. If they're very authentic and you can feel it, that you probably wouldn't be watching them if you didn't feel that they were authentic. If you didn't feel that they had authentic, they were there to help. They had a vision in line with what they were doing. You probably would not be watching them. You probably would be like, they don't match me. They don't match who I am, in situations like that. So it is very important. I think that a lot of people fall into the trap I mean, I fell into the trap too, because I do the tangibles for a living, which is, I was in this identity trap, so to say. Like, I was like literally pushing content out there constantly. I was trying to do all these things because I thought that that's what I needed to do. And I had the team to do it, right? I had to take a step back and I had to tell myself, what do I want? How do I want to lead? What are the things that are going to make me happy personally? And that's why I said earlier before on, like, KPI, personal KPIs, because those personal KPIs, me me going to the gym and going for runs, getting my meditation in, doing that stuff for myself actually has helped me be much more clear-minded in the actionable items that I need to do to make it to that next level.
I like
You
that.
know? And so coming back to your original question, I think that it's very important. I think that smaller gyms do have the problem of they try to do too much at once. They try to do too much at once. They try to go in and say, oh, we want to sell products, or we want to, actually, that's the biggest one I see, is they say, let's sell products now. When in reality, it's like, hey, like, you're now trying to compete in the online space, not the local space. So you'd have to put way more towards marketing for that. Nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But until you have like 3 or 4 locations, if you're a gym owner that's at stage 4 and you're expanding and you need to start worrying about design consistency and you have a little more budget, then yeah, you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone by some of the marketing efforts that you do. But it's down to the leadership. I always say my superpower is I can see a company online or even in person, and I can tell how good that company is at actually giving results and being there for the contribution of everyone, just by seeing their marketing collateral, just by saying how good are they doing here, how good are they doing there. Because, and I may be biased because I do it for a living, but if you think about it, all that marketing collateral, all that marketing material comes down to how they're leading their team and how they're trying to get clients. And if they're doing it in a way that's skeezy, they have bad customer service, they have this and that, that's pretty obvious up front. And that's part of the way the leadership roles are as people. And that's why branding in itself is much more than just that logo, or that website. Those are definitely a part of it. Those tangibles do play a part, but those intangibles of being authentic and actually serving people that you want to serve and that you can help, and being able to identify the problems and solutions that you can do for a particular type of person are going to be what gets you from that stage 2 to stage 3, which is basically just what you did to get to 250 to 500,000, depending on what you're in, what business you own, isn't going to get you to $1 million, isn't going to get you to 3 million. It's a completely different set of objectives and solutions and results. And I feel like a lot of people miss that. And that's part of what holds them back. And that's part of what even gives them burnout when they're trying to make it to that next level.
When we're trying to make it to that next level, or and I'm looking at this for me personally, from more than a gym standpoint, because everything that you're saying and have said, it works for an online model for a gym, it works for an in-person model for a gym, but it works in an online model if I was selling lipstick or trainers or cars or whatever. If we're not having some of these things, like, we'll take it back to something that we that we briefly ran over. You When I commented, is this, more customer retention focused, or is it more customer acquisition focused? And you commented, unfortunately, a lot of people, or a lot of gyms, are just more focused on a customer acquisition focus. If that's the focus of any company, when we're looking at scaling and growing, I can see why fatigue and burnout happens, according to what you said. Like, you will forever and ever and ever be judging what we're doing, or we're looking at our bottom line, we're looking at our earnings, and it's like, gosh, we lost 50 people, but I gained 150 people. But did that balance out? You know,
It's so annoying to me
yeah.
because you're correct. I always tell clients your biggest metric for business growth isn't your client acquisition. Yes, it's important.
Mhm.
Um, and you should always be focusing on your marketing and spreading your message, but it's the retention.
Mhm.
Retention retention and or lower churn rate. If you're a gym, it's lower churn rate. Like, how do you keep members on longer?
Mhm.
Um, that's what it comes down to. And I see it, and I've seen it go both ways. You could talk about it in any industry. I think e-commerce, for instance, if you're selling products online,
Mhm.
retention is a very hard metric to push for, right? You have you're usually just trying to sell one-off products to people over and over and over and over again, when it's like, how could you find a way to have this be more of a retention based model? I mean, I would say that's being more human to human,
Mhm.
and building something that relates. I think that's why subscription box companies
I was
have
just
gotten
about to
so
say
big.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the coaching and speaking space, or well, let's say coaching space, that has been something. And even for me as a podcaster, in any space, subscription services have been the aha, like, oh, this is the next bright idea. No, it's not. It's not the next bright idea. You just figured out that you can actually make more money when you keep people than trying to get new people all the time. But that's my soapbox. We won't get on it today. But
I've had clients for 8 years. I've had clients ever since I opened the business. Um, and some of them I, adore, and I'll do anything for. I'll go over the wall for them because they pay us a lot of money and we built good relationships. That's not always going to happen though,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Um, things change, things grow, people rebrand, people evolve. And so there's always time to let people go or vice versa. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, what you said is true. I mean, I've come to a period where, I'm in a B2B space. I'm not in a B2C space. I
Mhm.
don't have to market to 3 million people. I have to bring more quality to a smaller amount of individuals. I mean, I sell 10 clients, I'm at a million. So why would I focus so much on acquisition myself if um, the retention and making my clients happy is my main metric for success, because it's going to hurdle. So I don't need to bring on 10 clients a month. I don't need to bring on 20 clients a month. And that's a large number for the type of business I'm in. But if you're like a gym or an e-commerce store, of course, those numbers are much higher because you are B2C. But
Mhm.
I need one. If I can bring one client a month on, and like you said, just grow at a steady pace where I
Mhm.
can really watch my team and I can evolve the inner workings of the business as I grow, instead of trying to, what you said, bring on 150 and then, oh, what broke? Let's fix this and drop 50. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like companies too much. Why do you think there's so many hiring and firings all the time? I think so many companies are like, oh, we need to hire on all these people all the time, and then it just causes their we of their team to be disoriented and uncommunicative, and then it just causes even more problems because no one sees the inner workings. I mean, I told you earlier, I kind of can by seeing certain things, but majority of people can't. So I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think retention is by far the most important thing that anyone can try to bring on into their business. And you could just call that the reoccurring model if you want to. Um, but I look at more as, how can I continue to bring value to people as they evolve and as they grow.
As they grow. It's like I'm really big on retention, having moved from employee to, I like to say, partner, with those that work for me. We're in a partnership.
Mhm.
I've been an unhappy employee. I've been an even unhappier supervisor. And it usually, in the end, boiled down to retaining the right people in the right positions, and how much that costs versus, oh, we're always doing some type of hiring because this person quit, this person moved on, this person did something, and an amount of money and energy that it went through, when we could have just done a couple simple things, and this person would not have left, at least in that manner that they left. Because, like, even as you said, as you're B2B, like, a lot of my customers are business owners, and they
Mhm.
come on the show for, for exposure, or We have companies that come on, okay, I want to buy a slot, whether it's here on the podcast or on my TV show. It's companies who want to, expand in their advertisement and they want to advertise on streaming TV. It's hard to get that customer, but if I get, a set amount of customers, I'm good. Now keeping them past 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year on as sponsors for is it's easier to do that. And even then, if they said, okay, Laquita, we have maxed out what we think we can do in your space, but we love what you've done for us. But it's time for us to move on to a bigger space. Great. But them leaving in that manner, they're still a cheerleader for me. They're still advocating that, hey, if you want to start out and have your ad dollars add up and give you a great ROI, advertise on her podcast, advertise on her TV show, come be a guest just on the TV show, come be a guest on the podcast, or and you having a function going on, invite her to be a speaker, you'll see an ROI. Though they may be like, okay, Laquita, we've moved on because now I'm on John Maxwell stage, or I'm on Valerie Burton stage, or I'm on Mr. Beast podcast or something like that now. Great. But they're still going to give me positive raving reviews that's going to help bring in, either they're going to introduce me to their replacement client, or that replacement client is going to say, hey, how did you hear about me? Oh, I heard about you from John because he's been singing your praises for 2 years. So I want to come over here and become a part of that. It's so much easier to do that to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's funny. It's funny because going back to the digital marketing space, and the way the world has kind of pushed like social media, and the situation is the world has become very transactional.
Mm.
It's become very transactional, and there's nothing wrong with doing a CTA. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, a give and take, or to ask for something, especially when you're giving good value to people. But I mean, so many times I get people that will just look at me as a number and be like, oh, we can find someone else that does this. Who says I want to work with you? Like I don't feel jolly or happy when I'm just, yeah, you could pay me $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month. I mean, in fact, I had a client last year, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier with your own partners, is going from a me to a we isn't necessarily having to be team members. Like you can have partners, that follow similar values as you. And you can have clients that follow similar values as you do. And sometimes people fall through the cracks. You think that they match certain things and they don't. And it's at the end of the day, it's okay. It's like we just don't match the same values. And I had a client last year, and they were paying us $10K a month. We had a guarantee year contract. So that got us $120K at the end of the year. We did our due diligence. He seemed like a really great guy. We brought him on, and then about a month and a half into the contract, he completely shifted. I mean, he was okay on the phone, but those emails that came through, sporadic, mean, trying to change our services, trying to say you have to do this, desperate. He had something what I call in the industry, my industry's ex-girlfriend syndrome, where he was blaming everything on us compared to what happened to him in his last relationship.
Yeah.
But I eventually canceled out his contract. I didn't go after him for the extra money. I just was like, you know what? Like, yes, we would have about 50 to 60 that we're losing out on this year. But, at the end of the day, I was like, I'd be spending more in therapy. I can't do this. Like, and so I had to let him go, because I couldn't handle it. And those are the situations that I just see happening, and not letting people go, but having those situations are what I see happen on a normal occasions for a lot of people, which make them kind of unhappy, and is part of the reasoning why they can't shift their mentality to that next stage of growth
Mhm.
in a positive manner. And a lot of it is due to, you know, the effects of being able to have us market on social media and do all that stuff. And I'm just not a fan of cold leads, cold calls, like anything like that. I'm like, I'd rather have someone come to us because
Mhm.
they want to come to us, you know?
Yes.
So all of our marketing is warm marketing, which to me is more of a branding tactic than it is uh, a marketing tactic. I'm sorry. People on here that do marketing may say otherwise, but I, I don't. I think that warm marketing is really just branding.
Mhm. I, I'm neither. I'm not a marketing expert. Definitely not a branding expert. Um, but I came also from a space of having been a network marketer for a while. Guaranteed, it's so much easier to deal with the warm market than it is than it is a cold market. And in this social media driven age that we live in, no matter what your business is. I mean, we have I had a previous podcast guest, she was 75 and she's out here in these social media streets killing it. She's doing 1,000 times better on TikTok than I ever would hope to. It's like, go ahead, grandma, you do your thing. But people, that's where you get your warm market from. I was in an interview this morning where when we're showing up in the places we need to show up as our authentic self, just from a personal branding perspective, I've had clients to tell me, "Oh, I've been following you," and and then they'll tell you about the different things and stuff that you've said or done or whatever was captivating to them. And then they came and they did business with me. It wasn't, "Well, Laquita, tell me what you offer." It was, "No, I know you have this. This is what I want. And how do I pay? And when can we get started?" Well, by the time they came to me, that's a warm market because now they're familiar with me because they've taken the time and did their due diligence, whether it's 18 months, 12 months, 6 months. Most of the time, when something like that happens, it's usually around the 18 to 24-month mark for me
Mhm.
where that happens. And especially if I've seen them show up where, okay, I noticed that person. I didn't notice when they subscribed to my email campaign, but I did notice when they hit a reply or when they sent a message or something like that. Cause I'd like to do that part as a human touch. I'm actually looking at that. I've seen that name before, or I enjoy live stream. So I've seen that person comment before. And now here I am having a real life conversation with this person, and now that person has become my client. To me, it's so much easier to do that. I'm not picking up the phone to cold call. I'm just not doing that. I'm just not doing that.
And then I know you'll hear it from multiple people, and I'll be honest with you. You know, it goes both ways, and I think that that's kind of a problem within the energy. Uh, a lot of business owners put out into the world is they don't match their own values, right? And
Yes.
so, for me, for instance, I don't do cold calling either. The only way I'll email someone cold is if there's an intent involved. If it's like, "Hey, I knew you were already looking for this stuff. I heard it from the grapevine that you're looking. I heard someone gave me your information and
Mhm.
you're looking for it. I thought I'd reach out." Yeah, then I'll reach out and make an introduction. But uh, I think that like when we get, I've spent so much money and time on like making sure that people that come in and want to work with me match my values, like match our stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that, I'll get people on the call and they'll be like our first call and they'll be like, "Oh, so tell us about some of the clients you've worked with." And I'm like, "Well, didn't you go through the 6 emails I sent you or our website where we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, making sure that you got enough information from about us so you felt like we were a good fit?" And they don't. And I'm not asking people, of course, to spend hours and hours and hours of due diligence, but you people, it should go both ways. People should be looking at vendors or looking at the people they want to partner with, just like the people that are looking to hire them. They should be having an equal like opportunity there to be like, yeah, like I think we relate to each other and we would be a good fit to work to each other. I mean, when that client left last year, one of our partners prayed with me. He was like, he was working, they were working on part of the solution with us with them. And he jumped on he's like, let's jump on a call. And he prayed with me. And I appreciated that ability for him to be not just like, oh, well, sucks, you'll get the next one, like, so I do feel like we all just need to be able to say, hey, what are my values? What are the things that I really, because what I portray myself and who I am, and that is branding, right? What I portray myself, who I am, and I don't care what it is. If you want to be an a-hole and that's your personality, then you're probably going to attract other a-holes. But that's your right to be that type of person because that's who you want to be. I would say there's trauma involved in the reason they're like that, but that's a whole different topic in itself. But
I would agree.
but I could go on. I could go off in many different directions with these conversations. But yeah, I feel like being able to kind of figure out who you are and going even further back to, is it important for gym leaders or business owners to brand themselves personally? Yes. I think it's important for everyone. And I think that, yes, if you're just starting out and you're finding yourself, totally understandable why you're at a certain spot. But, I think that the correlation between business growth and a human and being who they truly are really kind of intersect at a similar spot. And I think that's why you see a lot of business owners that make it to, what we call, in the business world, the valley of death period. And then they either quit or they decide they have to pivot because they personally find different metrics for success. And I think that's that correlation. And you and I talked a little bit before we jumped on this call about me and having children. That was a huge thing for me personally that helped me even pivot the way I am marketing my business. And so that shows you how the personal business owners behind the scenes or the ones building the personal brand themselves, why it's so important for them just to be themselves and market the way they want to market.
Absolutely. I know you said that, and I thought about one of my my husband and I in 2017. We owned a virtual call center, and we were subcontractors through a larger company called Rise. And the reason that for me that I chose to partner with that is because I've been a military wife. At that point, he had just retired, so a military wife for like 24 plus years. And one of the things that was hard for me was to maintain a career because we were always moving every couple of years. And so when I saw this company and it allowed the individuals who took the calls from the major companies, they were contracted with lots of major brands. And the people who were answering the phones were doing it from home and they created their own schedule. That resonated with me in a special place. As a wife, as a mom, as someone who lived a transient life because we go where the army says we had to go. That was something that with that company, they resonated with my personal core values. And I was happy to do interviews with other women, other single parents, other single dads, or even, people who this was their part-time job because they need to meet ends meet. Like all of those things at one point had been my family story. So to be able to empower somebody, and that because that's how I felt, like empower them with not only a way to earn extra money for your family, but be able to do it and keep your priority. Like when you started to have children, that shift happened. For a lot of us, that shift happens, but sometimes we don't get to do what we want to do because somebody else is telling us what we have to do. and somebody else is telling us, you're going to do this 65 hours a week. You're going to do this 40 hours a week, and I'm only going to pay you, I'm going to max you out at $30 an hour. That's all you're going to get from me. But you're going to do everything that I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. And your family has to fit in when they can fit in. Where now you can do exactly what you want to do. Like even today with us, like success for me now. I had so much fun at that program for my grandbabies today.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
And I
Yeah.
and I did. It was so amazing. But there was a time where I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Even as a business owner, I would have been afraid to do that. And so this isn't just me being somebody's employee. This is even me being a business owner, how that transition has happened for me over the years where, there would have been a time was like, I would have been like, honey, can you video it for me? And I'll watch it when you come back because I've got to do this. But as we grow and we evolve and we understand our power, um, and we take more responsibility in our personal development, you'll see that shift. And that's how we are able to connect with people and know when we are aligned. Like some people don't even know what that means to be aligned with your ideal customer or their mission, their vision, their core values. Are they in alignment with yours? Like they don't know to check for it because the things that are put before us is, are they going to pay? Like how, how hard that would have been for some people to walk away. Yes, you do know how hard it would have been for some people to have walked away from that toxic client. Either were like, man, just make it to the end of the contract. No, that's not more important to me. That wasn't more.
It was very hard for me. I will admit it was a very hard decision. But I remember right when he was gone, like wait. And here's the funny thing with that client, and I'm not going to say who he is because I'm just not that kind of person. But other people will figure out themselves when they try to buy his products. But he owned a health and wellness e-com brand.
Mm.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, because of the type of person you are, I would never feel comfortable buying your products. Like there's no way in heck I would rely on your products. How do I know that they're even safe? Because
Right.
if you're this type of person, then
Do you really care?
do you care? Like, do you care enough to think about the client and the services that you are providing? And that's branding in itself, right? That's what it really comes down to. And back to your point, I think it's very important for people to realize is, you mentioned, hey, business owner, you had to realize it even as a business owner. That's what I had to go through because, when you first start a business, no matter what business you're in, even when you're probably doing the call center stuff with your husband, like I learned so much in the first year of business that I learned many years in the corporate world. And it was one of those situations where when I was out, I was learning so much, but then you just get caught up. You get caught up in like, oh, I have to survive. I have to grow, which is fine. There's going to be part of you that has to make that next sale or has to do something, has to learn, has to grow, especially at the very beginning. But you lose yourself. You lose yourself in the process of trying to be. How do I explain it? You try to. It's like you're still chasing this invisible number. You're just like, oh, and a lot of it came down to I was very unseen and unheard as a child. My dad was an NFL player. I played soccer growing up, and I'm not going to go deep into this story too much, but my business was growing around that traumatic experience of, oh, if I make it to 1 million, I make it to 2 million top line, people will see it and I'll be heard by all the people around me. Very similar situation, but different occurrences happen to gym owners because I started taking up working out as a way for me to, really it was a way for me to reduce my anxiety and my mental health and all that. But I didn't realize that at first either. I was like, oh, I'm going to look buff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to showcase it, and as a business owner, you start to be like, well, is this important? I mean, when my first child was born, My first child was born. I remember, and I was just talking about my wife about this the other day, and I'm thinking I'm going to do some sort of speech on this of some sort. But because I've had three, I'm going to have three children now, and each experience is going to be uniquely different and better. But when I had my first child, I remember we were at the hospital, and I got a call from a potential client that I've been over serving like crazy, going back and forth over and over again and trying to make a sale. And it's like, hey, we need to jump on a call at like 12. And it was like 10:15, and we were at the hospital. It was like day 2. And I'm like, love, I have to get home. I have to get on this call. It's a potential large sale. And I did. I went home. I was like 5 minutes late because we rushed home from the hospital. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I just had my baby, and I jumped on this call. I look back at that and how ungrounded and unpresent I was around my family. And I'm like, man, and it's very easy for business owners of any size to get trapped in that mentality, no matter how big you are. I see $20 million business owners that still work 100-hour work weeks, and they're miserable, and it's like, all right, well, I'm not saying money is not important. Money is an energy, and the trade associated with money is really irrelevant because people consider money's value differently, even with the economy, no matter where you're from. And so I look back at that situation, I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. I did better on my second one. My third one, I'm of course like, you know what? No, I'm taking 2 days off. I may do a couple Slack things with my team, but like, no, I'm even thinking about taking 2 weeks off and just simmering down and being present around my wife and my kid because I want to be around my family.
Yeah, and you're right. No matter being in this space, in the leadership space, I know when we opened the call center, my husband retired, and we were living in Germany at the time, stationed in Germany. We're having this conversation. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, LaQuita? No, I don't want to continue to be a government employee. I don't want to be a government contractor. I've been there. I've done that. There's some security in it. Yes, there's a lot of headache in it. Absolutely. Um, but I started to realize how those things were defining me instead of me defining me. So I don't want that. So what do I want to do? Well, I want to. This business came across that partnership with Arise at the time. It came to me, was brought to me. It's like, okay, Lord, let's find out about this. So the more I found out about the business, the more I wanted to do it. So I said, okay, honey, when you retire, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna own this business. And because I can do it no matter where I am, that we can do it legally from Germany. I'd done that research as an American. Um, or if we have to go back home stateside, I can do it there. Well, for 24 years, my whole identity had been wrapped up in his career. You walk in a place and you're not known by who you are, but at that time, he was Master Sergeant Munley. So our first, or in some branches, First Sergeant Munley, and he worked in the intel industry, in the military intelligence field, and so all of the things and stuff that go with that. And now here we are. That's no longer going to be the case. Well, who am I? Or if I'm dealing with my children, I'm Daryl, Devontae, Denise, David, and Marquez's mom. But who am I? That part was, I was unpacking that. And so, oh, now I've got to be this wonderful business owner and gonna have this fabulous company. So I'm dumping all of my time in it because the 4 older children had been off to college and they were gone. We just had the one youngest son, and he was very independent. Um, he was in the 9th grade, going to the 10th grade. So I spent insane hours building that company to where my husband would come in looking for me and come in the office and just stand behind my computer, that looking like, when are you coming down these stairs? Or my children, or then I noticed my grandchildren would come in and come to the office and say, oh, you're working, and then just turn around and leave, not, come give Granny a hug or anything like that. And I realized after doing that, now let's be clear, I was not a genius in the first 90 days. I wasn't even a genius in the first year with that. It took me a while. for that to resonate with me and know that, okay, this can't be, this can't continue. We've done that for 24 years because the army ran our life and we didn't have a walkaway power. But now we're not going to reverse that role to where now I'm the person that's doing it, but I have full control. My husband had no control. I will have full control. And this is the decision I'm making. And it's an unhealthy decision coming from an unhealthy place. So, what are we going to do about it? So, then you do the work. And I found that over time, it didn't hurt my business. Those clients who were going to be connected to me, divinely connected to me, they're still my clients. Those people who are going to resonate with me because of who I am authentically, even in transparent moments where I've shared pieces of the story, they're still, and I'll find that, oh no, we're going to connect with you even more. You're going to connect with me, but you have to build the personal brand. Yes, you have to show up and be authentically yourself. Yes, but it's showing up from the healthy part of you and having some firm boundaries in place. That where I'm from, it's a saying, all money isn't good money. That has a powerful meaning, and believe it and know it and operate in it, and you'll find that you'll have a healthier, happier life and business. Because in those terms we've defined success for ourselves instead of letting other people, clients included, um, define it for us, because we've left corporate because we don't want to be a slave to the corporate plantation. Don't come into your business and then do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's very easy for you to do it too. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not going to say there's nothing wrong with it, but as people, what makes us comfortable? It's what we've learned, and so you do have to adapt and change. When I opened my agency, I I came from the corporate world working with large brands like the Suns. I worked for Pearson Education, but a lot of the stuff that we did was production based, like create the tangible stuff. Like we created a lot of the tangibles. And so that's how my agency slowly started to grow, was in that way. And I kept asking, like, what's wrong? Like, why am I like not happy? Like, why is this not working for me? And it wasn't until I was like, you know, it's because I'm not really helping people.
Mm,
I'm giving them stuff. I'm helping them get clients. But if they're still unhappy personally, then they're still going to have roadblocks on them finding their success, right? Which is what we've talked about. And so that's where I came to my realization, where I'm like, oh, like I need to go out and speak more. I need to go out and I need to start consulting more and helping them understand the importance of branding as a person and helping them really build that within their brand. Because if I don't, then there's a good chance that they're not going to be able to go from here to there because they're not going to know how.
yeah, yeah, that's real good. That's real good. It has to start on the inside, of the person. It has to start on the inside of the person. And when that's done, you'll see the positive impact in their personal life, but definitely in their brand, in their business. You'll see that growth. Even if that growth means I transition from this to that. Because am I showing up in this business because, again, it was from an unhealthy place, and I'm trying to give 1,000% for something that's actually not in true alignment with me. So I need to make that pivot so that I can show up from a healthy place. And this thing that I'm doing now is in perfect alignment with me, and let's watch it grow. And it doesn't mean that the first business didn't make money. It probably made a lot of money. But were you fulfilled? Even if it meant, okay, I'm gonna, my business name or anything, I'm not rebranding, but perhaps I'm gonna change my target market. I'm still gonna do what I'm doing, but maybe I need to change my target market so that
Yeah.
I'm more in alignment with, who I am and my ability to serve people. Because am I serving people, or am I serving? I mean, the corporation is a group of people, but am I serving them? Because
Yeah.
just making helping them close sales, that doesn't mean I'm serving them. But how am
Yeah.
I, how am I serving them? I mean, We could definitely have like many conversations. That's a fun conversation right there that I'd love to have actually.
Am
You
I
know,
actually serving them?
and
Well,
we
and
actually serving the people that we said we're serving, right?
well, get this. It wasn't until about a year ago now, I went on a spiritual walk. I had a spiritual day with one of my coaches. It was great guy. And it was actually probably one of the only coaches I've had that like actually has helped me through the things that I feel like are tangibly needed to make it to the next level, you know? And I remember coming home crying to my wife because I'm like, my feelings of being unseen and unheard. Like I was over serving clients. I was over serving. I was expecting too much out of my business. And it wasn't until went on a spiritual walk all day that I realized that I'm like, my family is there for me. They
Mhm.
they hear me. They see me. I don't need to. I'm just putting too many of certain types of emotions and expecting too much out of what I am doing for others that I'm not looking at. I can transition those emotions and those situations towards other parts of my life. And
Sure.
I think that comes a lot with, you know, getting burnout in business is you're just expecting too much from on something making you happy when that should only be a, a, a a leg to the chair.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Listen, like this is an amazing conversation. Let me go ahead and apologize to you for not being mindful of your time today.
It's all good. It's all
But
good.
I'm definitely looking forward to our next conversation, and we can dive more into that because I'd really like to unpack that spiritual day that you have because as humans, as business owners, we've got to realize that, we're triune beings. We're spirit, soul, and body. And when we take care of all of those components, it shows up for us in a magnificent way. So I definitely love um to dive deeper into that experience and how it helped, not just on a personal level, but how you were able to see the fruits from that in your business.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to. Listen, I know I'm over my time. I apologize, but please let the Toolbox audience know how they can connect with you and stay connected to you and what you have coming up.
Yeah, definitely. So we've recently come out with our private podcast. This private podcast is a 3 episode series limited to people that are looking to get out of the being stuck and move to building a much more sustainable lead flow that can be worth their while as they continue to grow slowly and steadily. And through this private podcast, you'll be able to, you know, discover and be able to build the 3 pillars that really help you start to cultivate that community that you're really thriving to build within your brand and your business. You can find us and you can reach out to us through that at leavethatmark.com, and you'll be able to subscribe to that private podcast and hear more of me talking.
Make sure you guys reach out and get subscribed to his private podcast because I know he has some amazing jewels to share. Listen, Zach, thank you again. Those of you that are tuning in to LaQuita's Toolbox, if this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I know you've been blessed by the content you received today. For my returning listeners, hey, y'all, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you as always. Until next time, I am your host, LaQuita Monley. You guys be blessed and have an amazing rest of your day. Take care and God bless.